Last Friday, it appeared that an all-out war between Russia and Ukraine could erupt at any moment. We woke up that morning to the news that Ukraine claimed it attacked and destroyed part of a Russian military convoy that it claimed crossed the border into the country Thursday night. 2 reporters for London's Telegraph reported seeing the military convoy cross the border. NATO promptly denounced Russia for an incursion into Ukrainian territory and warned that there could be serious consequences. Well, I braced myself Friday for the Russian retaliation against Ukraine. Officials in Moscow, however, shrugged off the news report as some kind of fantasy. They seemed to be amused by the uproar. The weekend came and went, and there was no war. Neither was there any evidence of a destroyed Russian military convoy. Today, Monday, there's not even discussion of it. Last month, the West accused Russia of shooting down the Malaysian airliner over Ukraine. The anti-Russian propaganda in Western newspapers and TV networks was whipped up to a frenzy. Newsweek magazine's front cover on July 23rd called Mr. Putin the pariah and that he was the West's public enemy number 1. The front cover featured a sinister-looking, almost skull-like photo of Vladimir Putin. He was wearing black sunglasses that had red, fiery nuclear blasts in each lens. The West is clearly attempting to bait Mr. Putin to come out on the playground and fight. Despite the war-mongering propaganda, the Russian leaders are remaining calm. Now, I don't think they will succeed in pushing Mr. Putin to fight on their terms and schedule. My concern is that Vladimir Putin is one very cool cat who will throw a sucker punch when nobody is looking. He'll fight when the terms are favorable for him to win. Now, I know the world has entered its historic war cycle. That means there's a high probability that world leaders will go insane in the next 5 to 7 years and start a big war that could result in unimaginable destruction. Well, what's driving the world towards war? And is there any way to stop it? Gerald Celente is the world's foremost expert on watching and analyzing world trends. He is the founder of the TrendsResearchInstitute and the editor and publisher of the TrendsJournal. The website is TrendsResearch.com. Gerald, what is driving the world towards war?
Madness. And here we are at the 100th anniversary of World War I, and it was madness back then. Every historian knows that that was a totally useless war, launched by a few mad people that destroyed Europe just as it was burgeoning into a civilization that was magnificent, and we have never gotten over it. I mean, when we talk about the Middle East, let's remember, the Great Game where they carved up and made up places like Iraq and Lebanon and all these other places. They just carved them up and set the stage for the problems that we have now. And you have the same mad men and women in charge. There's just a different time. I mean, how many more lies do people have to add up before they can see and call the truth a truth? That Saddam Hussein, he has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda, I tell you. And, we're going to do a humanitarian mission. I'm the Nobel Peace Prize winner, and we're going to save Libya before Muammar Gaddafi kills his people. And one after another. We've got to get them Taliban because they're hiding Al-Qaeda and, quote, a person by the name of Osama bin Laden, so we're going to invade Afghanistan. And we wrote, Rick, as you know, you've been getting the TrendsJournal many years, the first great war of the 21st century has begun. It's unfolding in front of us. Do you know who's in Vietnam now?
Who?
America's military leader, Dempsey, trying to strike a deal with Vietnam on opening the ports over there, Cam Ranh Bay and others, deep water ports. And here's his quote: I would suggest, as goes Vietnam, in managing the maritime resources and territorial disputes, so goes the South China Sea. This is the Chief of Staff, General Martin E. Dempsey. And you should see the photo. Here they are, these soldiers all lined up, and they're saluting. Saluting on another war started by lies. You remember the Gulf of Tonkin incident? That never happened? Oh, yeah, that one. The one that cost us what? Only 58,000 dead Americans. A couple of 100,000 committed suicide and still suffering the wounds, psychological, mental, and emotional wounds of the war. Oh, and then they even have this. What a great thing he just did. They set up a little plant over there to help decontaminate some of the resources that had been poisoned by the Agent Orange. This is how sick these people are. Could you imagine coming up with a strategy? I got an idea. What we're going to do, Rick, is we're going to defoliate the whole place. We're going to poison it so nothing grows and they won't be able to hide under the trees or in the bushes. And if we kill everybody else, that's okay too. But then we'll be able to shoot them from the sky. So now you have millions. They killed an estimated 3 million Vietnamese, and now millions and millions are dying from the cancer caused by Agent Orange. But he's at that plant, and we're doing a good thing and helping clean it up. This is the sickness that pervades. It's immorality from the fish rots from the head down. Nothing is going to change until morality comes back.
Gerald, do you read what General Smedley Butler said many years ago, decades and decades ago?
I certainly have.
Nothing's changed.
No, war is a racket, he wrote. And he would no longer fight for the Brown brothers and on, the financial people down, that were raping South America and Haiti and the rest of the areas, and the immorality of the wars. And it's going on in front of us. No, and you know what is to me is really disgusting, particularly as a Christian. When I hear the presidents of the United States, be they Clinton, Bush, be they Nixon or Johnson or Obama, saying that these poor young people that went to fight these wars in foreign countries based on lies are, quote, committed the ultimate sacrifice. The ultimate sacrifice? You mean sending innocent people that believed your lies to go kill other innocent people? The ultimate sacrifice? I mean, the devil could have made that one up. Maybe he did, or she.
Gerald, is this current push for war being driven by the implosion of the Western financial system?
Yes. I've written about this, Rick, many times. When all else fails, they take you to war. It's a cycle as old as history. And all you have to do is go back to the Great Depression. You had a crash, depression, currency wars, trade wars, world wars. In fact, guys, you go to China daily. Go today. And you go through the archives there last couple of days, and you'll see how they're buying less and less U.S. treasuries. You see how the BRIC nations are trying to form their own bank and setting it up in Shanghai. And now you have the sanctions against Russia. And you articulated it very well, the lies that they're telling us. I mean, here everybody has an iPhone, a selfie, whatever they're doing, and you tell me they can't come up with one photo about the so-called Ukraine military destroying a column of personnel carriers and troop carriers and armored vehicles going into Ukraine from Russia? Not one photo? What am I, stupid? I mean, who's making this stuff up?
I mean, the propaganda is really getting cheesy.
I know, but people buy it. You look at the Trends Journal, the last edition, and you look at the story we did on George Bush after 9/11, the evening of 9/11, and 9 days later when he addressed the nation. I wrote it. I said only a madman would speak these words, and only people dumbstruck with terror would believe them. Bush's popularity rating went from 51% to 90% overnight, with lines that were dumber than dumb. There was no proof at all. You don't need good propaganda when people are fearful.
But
all you have to do is lie, and that's all they do. It's so easy to go to war. It's so easy to take the people to war. You name the country. You know, as I mentioned, this is the 100th anniversary of World War I. And as kids, we all know the Archduke Ferdinand story, right? He was assassinated in Sarajevo. Where was the Archduke from? He was Austrian-Hungarian. Head of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Now, wait a minute. What was he doing in Sarajevo? It became part of their empire. You mean they were occupying nation? Yeah, that's right. And a patriot, you could call him that, blew his brains out and his wife because they were tired of being enslaved. They're occupiers. But they never tell you that side of the story. Anybody that kills an occupier is a terrorist. You see it in the news. It's Afghan militants shot Americans or NATO troops. Terrorists, people living in Palestine that are fighting back, they're militants. I guess if all of these people had a whiter shade of skin, then they could call them resistance fighters, you know.
You know, Gerald, 10, 15 years ago on this radio program, I had to really work hard at dissecting propaganda. But lately, it's just, like I said, it's cheesy. It's so cheap. It's so flimsy that it's embarrassing. It's like, is this the best that you guys can put out there right now?
You don't need good propaganda.
Well, that's what they've discovered. The public will buy it.
Anything. Look, they drink 16-ounce Slurpees. They think McDonald's is food. I mean, look what's happened to this nation. They think Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber are singers and entertainers. We have a photo in the TrendsJournal of Sarah Vaughan next to Miley Cyrus. You want to see a freak show? They could sell anything.
So the elite they've come to the conclusion they really don't have to work hard anymore at lying.
That's right. And I wouldn't call them the elite. I'd call them lowlives, sociopaths and psychopaths in power, whatever the industry might be. Hollywood, music industry, and politics. Because after all, politics is just show business for ugly people.
Oh, you're rolling now. Keep going, Gerald.
Really? I mean, you look at this clown act. Who could believe them? How could any self-respecting human being believe the people from Washington? From the president to Kerry to Lindsey Graham to John McCain to Nancy Pelosi to Dianne Not-So-Feinstein, one after another, spewing out their cheap lines. You know the lines that they always say, by the way? You talked about propaganda being so transparent. All options are on the table. I'm so sick of hearing that one. You know, it's one stupid line after another. These people, Rick, at 23, I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County in the 1970s, when it was the richest county in the United States. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate at 23 years old. I taught American politics and campaign technology at St. John's University, a course I designed and instructed, and for several years was the chief government affairs specialist for a major segment of the chemical industry. I was living between Washington and D.C. I've seen it. I know who these people are. They're the same people you hated in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council. The brown nosers, the suck-ups, the insincere, and the overly ambitious. They follow their career paths. They are paper thin. It's the Wizard of Oz. The decrepit old man is behind the curtain.
You know, it seems like the lowest level of human society is in control of all the major sectors of society.
Yes. And it goes back to immorality. Look what's going on with Ferguson, Missouri. They shot this kid, whatever. They shot the kid 6 times. You pick up the TrendsJournal. For how long have we been writing against and about the militarization of America's police force? Did everybody have attention deficit disorder on the Boston Marathon bombing? When they closed down an entire city, had people coming out of their homes with their hands up, no warrants, no search warrants. It's fascism, and no one wants to call it what it is. It's the merger of state and corporate powers. I don't use that term loosely. Again, go back under Bush when the Panic of '08 began. What did they do? I got a good story for you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that flunky we got, Paulson. Yeah, the guy, if he doesn't going to do this, he'll do the next Frankenstein movie. But we'll take him from Goldman Sachs, the CEO, and we'll make him Treasury Secretary. And then when this thing crashes, we're going to roll him out, and we're going to say that we're going to save the banks. And I'm going to tell you the reason what Paulson is going to tell the people so they all buy the lies. He's going to say that we're going to bail out the banks so we could save the people who have these mortgages, and we could save them from losing their houses. That's what that liar said. So they made up a whole story, too big to fail. Rick, in capitalism, there is no such thing as too big to fail. No, we got to bail them out. We got to bail out AIG because the Goldman Sachs gang, they made a bad $13 billion bet with AIG. And remember, Henry Paulson was the former CEO, as was Robert Rubin under Clinton, who helped deregulate the Glass-Steagall Act that allowed all this criminality to be put in place because, of course, that act was put in place after the crash of 1929, so the banksters couldn't steal from us again. So when I say fascism, these are the implications when the corporations are running the country. In the old days, they called them robber barons. We'll be more polite. Let's call them hedge funds, private equity groups, and venture capitalists.
You know, I'm going back to General Smedley Butler. There's a story that very few Americans know about. In the 1930s, he went public and said, and you got to remember, General Butler was the most decorated American soldier living at the time. This was the hero of America at that time. And he went public, Gerald, and told the whole world that he had been recruited by, a group of business titans in America to lead a fascist takeover of the United States of America.
That's right.
They wanted him to lead the army. They were going to take over Washington, and they wanted him to back up their fascist government. Now, we're not talking about, some crackpots with some crazy idea that they were going to overthrow the country. He said these were some of the richest, most powerful men in America. And they wanted him to lead an army to back them up in the takeover of Washington for a fascist government.
And we have it now.
We've got it now.
We've been robbed of our rights. We've been robbed of our rights, right? Remember, Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act on New Year's Eve, 2011. And what did it do? It allows them to take any one of us, call us a terrorist or having an association with one, and killing us.
How close are we right now with this Ferguson situation? How close are we to seeing civil disobedience, civil unrest spread throughout the United States?
First of all, I want to make this really clear. This is not racial. It could be an element of it. The police are killing dogs. They're killing old people. They're out of control. They've lost it. Well, not all police, of course. Matter of fact, up here in Kingston, New York, we have some bad neighborhoods. The cops leave you alone around here. They only go after bad stuff. They're great. But then you take the roads out here, and the state troopers stop you for going 7 miles over the limit. And they get out of the car. They got to pay their budgets to meet, So what's happening is it's not racial. It's part of it. And they're trying to turn it into something that's racial. It's bigger than that. And you were talking about the 1930s. There were riots all over this country in the 1930s. They never talk about that. They were slaughtering strikers. They never talk about that. We are on the cusp of the same thing. But now it's become different because what George Bush succeeded in doing, he was able to tie it into terror. And I believe they'll use a false flag or something else to clamp down on our rights even more and keep us in place. I went to see a movie yesterday. We have the Kingston Film Festival, and it was called Dog Days. And it was behind the scenes the guy who, remember the movie Dog Day Afternoon Al Pacino played? Mm-hmm. And the movie was a riot. But anyway, here they have this scene. And again, you know, if you can't tell by my accent, being a Bronx New Yorker, you know, I can relate to the Brooklyn New Yorkers. And here's this scene with this guy negotiating back and forth outside the bank with thousands of people out on the streets cheering and yelling with this whole scene going on. There weren't SWAT teams. The cops weren't shooting tear gas.
Gerald, speaking of fascists and movies, did you ever see the old movie from the 1930s, Gabriel Over the White House?
Yes, I did.
You know what it's about. Fascist takeover of the United States.
Yep. And so when we look at the facts, because as the introduction into your show about, you know, you putting the facts out there as being lied to by the mainstream media, the facts are they robbed us of our Fourth Amendment rights. They robbed us of our First Amendment rights. They have free speech zones, and if you get out of line, you can't even speak in one of them. I'm not making that up. The Supreme Court ruled on that. We have no Fourth Amendment rights. They watch everything that we do, listen to everything that we say. Well, one right after another has been robbed from us.
Well, the Constitution, for all practical purposes, is null and void now.
It's null and void. And ironically, well, maybe not. Maybe it's synchronicity. I'm sitting here looking across the street at the Kingston Courthouse. John Jay was a jury here, and so too were 4 Supreme Court justices. This was the first capital of New York State. The seeds of democracy were planted here. The New York State Constitution is the one that the United States Constitution was written from. And I want to see the Second American Revolution. I want to go down to the precepts of what the Founding Fathers believed in. And, of course, when I say revolution, I want it to be peaceful. I want it to be an intellectual revolution and a spiritual one, however you believe in, whatever God you believe in, and whatever you believe in that causes no harm to others. And the divinity of the soul, however you believe in it. So when I say revolution, I mean it in the truest and overall sense, not violence and guns.
Yeah, we don't want you to be an insurgent.
Yeah, right. And again, I want to see it work. I don't want to see the violence because that'll just keep it going. The people are ready now, I believe, more than ever. You look at the polls, Rick. What is it, 8% of the people believe in Congress? They barely believe in the president. The vacuum has never been larger. I believe that the ingredients for change are dignity, courage, passion, and self-respect. And when that happens, everything will change. And you lead by example. And the examples are ready now. We're going to be launching from here an Occupy Peace movement. We put the site up already. It's occupypeace.us. It's only welcome for the United States people. And again, based on the principles of the Founding Fathers, no foreign entanglements. Rebuild America. There were wars going on back then, plenty of them, the English and the French. Matter of fact, the French had a revolution not long after ours because of our model and our Constitution. So we want to do is rebuild America. When you talk about Ferguson, read how they refer to it. A struggling U.S. city, like how many others? Why are we struggling? Could you imagine the trillions of dollars that have gone to war going toward peace and rebuilding this country? Let's bring home the troops, seal up the borders, I don't believe in immigration. I only believe in it at a time when we could use it. And right now we have 316 million people. And again, you know the motto of the Trends Journal, think for yourself. I'm not proselytizing. I'm only saying what I believe. We have 316 million people. We have a 25% poverty rate, and we have people that can't find jobs. Let's take care of our own before we take care of others. Let's feed the family and take care of it. And so what I'm saying, bring home the troops, no foreign entanglements, seal the borders, and put the troops back to work in helping to rebuild this country. Hey, another train derailment. Yeah, we have a train system that's speeding into the 20th century as the rest of the world goes high speed. So I believe there's a solution. And I also believe in a self-sustaining economy. Let's trade with America. Why am I wearing shoes, shirts, pants, and buy China from China? Why can't I buy things that used to be made in America? We can do it if we take the power of Washington away from the madmen and mad women that call themselves congressmen and senators and bring it back to the people.
We're going to let that be the final word. Gerald Celente, founder of the Trends Research Institute, editor and publisher of the Trends Journal. You can subscribe by going to TrendsResearch.com. Always a pleasure